Well, good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. Trust me, I'm trying. I do this when I meet with prospective students back on campus, so, but I have to remember this is a series of peers today, so a little bit different. My name is Dave Kobzina. I'm the Assistant Director for Transfer Recruitment at Portland State University.
And I'm Kelly Stoner. I'm a Senior Transfer Admissions Counselor at Portland State.
And so our session today is on transfer student recruitment and transfer student advising. One thing to note, you will see in the back of the room there is a camera, so if at any point you ask questions during the presentation, we will be repeating it. We will have time throughout the session for group discussion, things of that nature, so please bear with us as we go along. So one thing also you are going to note in some of the slides, the pictures of Portland State and the city of Portland, everything is sunny. Of course, that is always how it is in the Northwest. You know, you're not going to buy it for 1 second, but you know, again, we always have to try to put a positive spin on that. So I want to start by talking a little bit about Portland State, just kind of give you some background. So our campus is right in the heart of downtown. Portland itself, we have about 600,000 residents. Metro area is about 2 million, which is half of the state's overall population. So big city, small city feel. We have just under 28,000 students altogether. We are the largest state institution. Of those 28,000, there's just under about 22,000 undergraduates. And even of that 22,000, about 60% of our students are transfers. So we definitely fit in well with the population that we're talking about here this week. Now, with our downtown location, one thing that's also nice is our hands-on learning opportunities. Every single one of our graduates will leave having done either an internship or a community-based project. We definitely focus on all of that as we go along. We are a very diverse university. You can see about a third of our students identify as being non-Caucasian. So certainly you have the racial and ethnic diversity, but also when we look at our student population, we have a lot of adult learners. We have a lot of active duty military as well as veterans, students with children, so really trying to cater to a different audience in a lot of ways. About, you know, probably equidistant is wrong wording, but equally busy on campus, say, you know, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, as it's going to be at 5 or 6 o'clock at night. So it's really spread out throughout the day. You can see only about 10% of our students live on campus. Now, sometimes there's a perception, and especially we get this from parents saying, are you a commuter campus? Reality is no. Well, again, it's how you want to define it. About 50% of our students live within walking or biking distance, so folks are there, it's just they're not all on campus. If anybody else works at an urban university, you'll understand, you know, kind of why that on-campus housing can be a little bit of a challenge. One thing I have to backtrack, I forgot to ask as when we got started, I want to get to know the audience a little bit better here. So how many of you are from four-year institutions? Okay, well that answers my question. How many folks from the admissions enrollment side of the house? Okay. Counseling, advising? Okay. So good number. Okay, I think I've pretty much got everybody. If there's anybody I missed, please share with me. Anybody else from the West Coast? Great, love that. So you'll understand that it's 5 o'clock body time, so this is a little early to be doing this, so we're gonna make the best of how we go along. Now, again, we have a lot of students at the university. We still have a relatively small admissions staff, and this specifically up here is for our domestic recruitment team. We have it layered top down. It's not really that way, though, in terms of how we all work together. We have our director of undergraduate recruitment. We have 3 assistant directors, including myself. And then we have the rest of our admissions counseling team, including Kelly, along with Luke Reyes-White. They are our 2 specific transfer admission counselors. Even though 60%, like I said, of our students are transfers, we really don't do the work in a lot of ways to, you know, to kind of emphasize the outreach for that. Both Kelly and Luke work with students in our Portland metro area. All of the other counselors, as well as assistant and regular directors, work with transfer students as well, depending on their geographic region. We, of course, also have graduate students. We have student workers who help out, along with a great international recruitment team. Academic advising. Now, a couple of things about it at Portland State. One thing that we always like to stress is that for prospective students, all of our advisors are required to meet with prospective students on any number of topics, whether it be how your credits potentially will transfer, What can I be taking at my community college or my current four-year school, things along those lines. And we say it's required. We don't want to make it seem like, you know, they're not happy to do it. They are definitely, you know, enjoy doing so. But again, it is part of their job. One thing that is changing, though, with our academic advising, and this will be rolling out in the fall, is what's called our Advising Pathways program. So over the past, you know, however many years, all the advising has been done by the individual academic departments. A student contacts us and says, I need to talk to a biology advisor. We direct them to the appropriate person. I want to talk to business. We tell them to speak with them directly as well. But what we're going to be doing is changing it, so we are going to be grouping a lot of the majors into specific pathways. So we will have one for business, but that's not only going to include business majors. That's also going to include things like math and economics. We have a pre-health pathway. So somebody in the past who wanted to do pre-vet and then switch to pre-nursing, they would have a different advisor. They're now going to be able to keep that same advisor because we want to continue really the continuity as far as all of that goes. But it's not just going to be about academic advising. It's also going to be about career planning. It is going to be about financial advice, really kind of wanting to take the student from the time of pre-matriculation up until the point of graduation and beyond. So really, like I said, developing those good working relationships as part of all of that is going to go. And like I said, we do expect this to roll out in the fall. One thing that students can currently still do is come in undecided. Going forward, for students likely to apply for the fall of 2019 and beyond, is they will either have to declare a major or declare a pathway. And again, they can you know, move around within that, but likely we're expecting that if they change majors, it is still going to be within that same pathway. So this is something we are looking forward to. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Kelly.
All right, so at Portland State, transfer students often encounter both admissions and academic advisors. So there is some overlap there in what the two departments discuss. I'm also going to talk about how those relationships work between transfer students and admissions and transfer students and advising, and benefits of involving academic advisors in the recruitment process. So the intention for Portland State is that transfer students will first talk to their admissions counselor. We are supposed to be their first point of contact. For us, we can answer questions about the admissions and application process, transferring credits. We can answer questions about general financial aid, cost of attendance, scholarship opportunities. We can also answer general advising questions. So when I meet with transfer students, I can tell them about how to meet general education requirements, how to fulfill Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science requirements, and usually 100 or 200 level classes they can take for their major. So yeah, but transfer students have questions that span across multiple departments. So they not only want to know those general things, they also want to know specifics about their major, what kind of classes they will be taking once they get to Portland State, how to plan those courses and when to take those classes in a certain order. They want to know about research and career opportunities. So it's really beneficial for them to also be able to talk to their academic advisor for their major. So we are very fortunate at Portland State that we have professional academic advisors that are required to meet with both prospective and current students. So we in admissions have great relationships with our academic advisors. We know who to go to when we have questions or to make that warm handoff for the student from talking to their admissions counselor to talking to their advisor. So we really encourage that, and most of our advisors really want to talk to those prospective students and get those conversations started early and make sure that students are on the right track. So there is, yeah, like I said, so there is some overlap there. So admissions, we answer general advising questions, but the academic advisors can take that further. So for advisors, their main focus is advising current and prospective students, but they also attend recruitment events with us, and also sometimes get asked those recruitment questions. So for example, I was talking to one of our business advisors, and she said a common question that she gets is, what's the difference between doing business at Portland State versus doing business at X, Y, or Z school? And often, sometimes students do contact the advisor for their major first before coming to admissions. So that's partly due to the just good relationship that community college advisors have with Portland State advisors. So our advisors know who we are in admissions, and will often contact admissions when those questions come up. So relationship goes both ways. Yeah?
No faculty advisors then?
We do have faculty advisors as well. So professional advisors will meet with students in the first 2 years or with prospective students. And then for some majors, there's only professional advisors, but for some majors, there's faculty advisors in the junior and senior year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tools that we can use in admissions to help students with those advising questions. So we have transfer guides for some of our majors where there are a lot of classes that students have to take in the first 2 years, like business and engineering. So we have advising guides we can use to help those students before we hand them off to their advisor. We do have some sample handouts that we can pass around. And we have a few copies that y'all can take afterward if you're interested. And then, one thing I forgot to mention, so we use a tool called You Can Book Me. Has anyone used that before? It's a calendar tool. It's really helpful for students to book appointments with us in admissions, but also many advisors have their You Can Book Me links on the website, so that way when we're meeting with transfer students and need to kind of hand them off to their advisor, we can either make an appointment for them directly through You Can Book Me, or we can just give the student the contact information for their advisor. So yeah, You Can Book Me has been a really great tool for us. And then another tool that we use when doing advising with transfer students is Transferology. Who all uses Transferology? A few of you. Okay, great. So Transferology is a course equivalency system. So it'll tell you how courses transfer from one institution to another. So we have really benefited from Transferology in certain ways. So the pros for us in using Transferology have been that it's free for students to use, so they can look up how those equivalencies work. We, admissions, use it. Advisors have access to it as well. Students can run a DARS or a degree audit to see how their courses apply to their major. So there's been a lot of benefits for us in using Transferology. There are some things that have been a little bit more challenging with Transferology for us as well. So one thing is that we only have Oregon schools in our system, and some Washington and California and a few other out-of-state schools. So it is difficult for students to maintain it, and for students who are from out of state to see how their credits will transfer. For us, it's not as intuitive for students to use, so it seems like it's better for someone to actually be there with the student to explain Transferology. So for example, if a student takes a psychology course at the community college, we don't have many 100 or 200 level psychology courses at Portland State, so they see PSY, LD often when they look at the course equivalency. So that is fine. It's a 100 or 200 level psychology course, and it applies to their general education requirements as well as Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science requirements, but it's not intuitive for the student to know how that applies to their degree requirements. Another thing is that for community college staff, for community college advisors, They don't have access to the staff version where you can look at course by course tables. So for Portland State, we are actually in the process of looking into doing a sponsorship of some of our local community colleges so that they can have access to a staff version of it. And we feel like that's going to really benefit us and that they're going to be able to better advise their students on what they should be taking to transfer to Portland State. All right, so next I'm going to talk about the challenges that we face in working with transfer students. After this, we're going to open it up for discussion and see what challenges you all face at your institution, what you have to add. We'll only talk about the challenges at that point. And then we're going to talk about best practices that we use at Portland State to address these challenges and how we collaborate with academic advisors, mostly at Portland State, but also a little bit of collaboration at the community colleges. And then we'll open it up for discussion again to talk about what kind of solutions you all have. So Dave and I definitely are not experts. These are just the practices that we are doing. So we are really hoping to, steal some ideas from you all. So these are the challenges that we face. As I was just discussing, there's some overlap for us in admissions and advising. For us, we don't have a lot of transfer students in our database, so we find that transfer students don't want to give us their information until they're just ready to apply to PSU. For us, we also get applications pretty late. So our priority deadline for admission is February 1st each year, and that's also the deadline for scholarships. So often students will apply in the late spring or even over the summer, sometimes even like a month before classes start. And they can really just be unprepared and not to be able to take advantage of those scholarship opportunities. So we also sometimes have challenges reaching students early on in the process, first year at the community college, and helping to ensure that they are taking the correct courses to transfer to Portland State. And then finally, we do a lot in admissions to recruit transfer students and help them before they come over to PSU, but there's not a lot of efforts for retention of transfer students at Portland State. So helping students get connected once they are on our campus. All right, so those are our challenges. There are many more challenges, so wanted to open it up for discussion and see what you all have to add to the conversation. And yeah, so we'll just go ahead and open it up. Over here.
We're very decentralized at my institution to where admissions doesn't really even talk to the advising staff. We're the only one on campus who kind of tries to bridge that gap that talk to admissions and advising. So knowing what we should know to tell students that are wanting pre-advising is definitely a challenge.
A challenge, yeah. Over here.
I think similar to what you were saying with out-of-state articulation is a large issue myself, and then I have another transfer admissions officer that we work hand in hand. And we both have some in-state territory, but we have primarily out-of-state, and so trying to create either an articulation agreement with their general core courses that come from that specific state, or doing like a 2+2, finding those things.
Yeah. Back here.
What's your business process? How long is the courtship with that prospective student to get them to enroll, to get admitted and enroll? Is it a couple of weeks? The student contacts you and says, I'm interested, and do you do a follow-up? with them? And what type of software do you keep handy to keep your notes going?
Sure. So if a student contacted us and they wanted to apply for admission, once they apply and we have all of their official transcripts, they get an admissions decision, I would say, in about 1 to 2 weeks, usually. So we're pretty fast, and they get their transfer evaluation at that time as well. For keeping notes on students, we use Talisma. Anybody else use Talisma?
Not a bad choice.
No.
It's late now.
We'll have to talk to you more later.
One of the things, and sorry without the microphone.
No, yeah, go ahead.
So, you had talked about, how early do we start working with the students? A lot of times, we will be speaking with high school students who say, I have the grades to attend Portland State right away, but I'd rather go to community college for cost savings, things of that nature. So we will continue that discussion over the next 1 to 2 years, however long it might take. But we also know that transfer students have a variety of hurdles to get over to make that next step to attending a four-year university. So we are, again, in constant contact with them, anywhere from as short as a week before they apply, all the way 2 to 3 years. So again, it's for us keeping an intact admissions office, because a lot of times there's so much turnover. So again, getting to keeping those relationships, just like with the students, also with with school counselors, this is something that we found to be pretty effective.
Mm-hmm.
So I work for a two-year school, the minority of the group.
Oh, sorry, we missed you.
Okay. I think with some of our four-year schools, some of their challenges maybe, because we do have several four-year schools come to our community college to talk to students, which that have developed a culture, that they weren't stealing the cheaper institution students and what have you. But I think their challenges are students really want to speak to academic advisors in their areas, so it's very difficult to value the admissions process, and they really want to talk about what I'm taking now is I can apply to my business program, I can apply to my education program. And you really want to get them connected with all of those pieces and parts of the four-year school. But currently we just have admissions counselors or advisors coming to that can generally advise as well. But as you know, sometimes there's some barriers between advising admissions, which who should do what and who's appropriately doing that. So I think that's what some of our 4 years have challenges of, where the student isn't getting enough by just speaking to the admissions counselor. They want to talk to someone in their area that they're interested in majoring in.
Mm-hmm. We completely agree.
Has that been a culture at your institution, that because your transfer population is so large that it's been, many years that they made it required that the advisors speak with prospective students? Or is that something that was your institution decided, hey, every advisor must meet with prospectives recently, or has that been a culture for?
You probably know better.
I would say it's actually more recent. Now, there are a lot of departments that have reached out to students for years. Business is probably the best example of that. But for some of the smaller majors, it has become a more recent phenomenon, because their argument in a way is that I'm so busy working with current students, I don't have the time to work with the prospective students. But we have to help them understand that, again, this is a team effort, because you may be working with current students now, they're going to graduate. You've got to get the next flock of students coming in. So how can you help them be prepared when they enroll?
Yeah, and I think they recognize the benefit at Portland State. Like, if we catch them early on, then we don't have to deal with uncomfortable conversations later on. Like, you really should have taken this biology series at the community college and now you're behind, those kind of things.
Is it part of your visit process that when someone does make a appointment to visit, that they customize their visit, or is it just built in automatic? How do you guys arrange that, all those meetings?
So with our standard campus tours, they just do a tour and an information session. If they want to meet with an academic advisor, we can provide them with contact information, but we don't do the formal setup for them. So that's something we would like to see change, but as of right now, just staffing levels just don't permit that.
Okay, let's stick with the hands that are already up, and then we'll move on. So I see back there.
How do you handle off to advisors, do you have like a queue, or do you guys have your specific go-tos for each college?
Yeah, so I will just either make an appointment for the student. If the advisor has their You Can Book Me calendar available. Sometimes there's multiple advisors for each department, so just whatever schedule fits for the student. Or sometimes I just give them the direct advising contact in their email, or in some cases it's calling a phone number, like our engineering and computer science. They just call a number and schedule with whoever is available. Yes.
Will you repeat when you said you provide the advisement report or the degree audit, and will you use an official or unofficial transcript to admit to do that? And do you find that the students find it particularly helpful? Do they understand it when they're reading it?
Okay, yeah, so we need an official transcript to admit and do an official evaluation where they can run a degree audit. I would say for some students, if they have a similar program at their community college, it may not look so foreign, but yeah, otherwise it's not exactly intuitive to read the DARS report. Yeah, so often it helps them to either talk to an admissions person or to talk to their advisor. Okay, so I think we should, who had their hand up earlier when I said we'd do 2 more? Okay. Okay, yeah, I think we should move on for time's sake. All right. That was good though. So now we are going to discuss PSU best practices. So we're going to talk about some events that we do for transfer students and how we involve academic advisors in these events. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is transfer workshops. So we do transfer workshops in the fall and spring terms at 7 local community colleges in the Portland metro area. The furthest away that we do is Chemeketa Community College in Salem. It's about an hour away for us. Just to give you a little history of our workshops. So there was a former PSU employee who worked with transfer students, and she designed workshops to be a presentation style program. So it was about an hour, 2 hours, and at the end students would get an individual advising appointment if they wanted it. So when I came on board and I planned my first transfer workshop for fall 2014, I decided to meet with PSU advisors so that they could give me their feedback on the workshops and we could plan from there. So when I met with the advisors, I found out they were not satisfied with the workshops. The attendance was usually really low. Sometimes they would go to the events and not talk to any students at all. So from that meeting, we decided that we would do it as more of a kind of college fair style where students could just drop in, busy college students could just drop by and get their questions answered. So to give you a little bit of information about our numbers, and we do have students apply at these events. A lot of students will apply. So when I first came on board in fall 2014, we had 300 total participants among the 7 community colleges and received 151 applications. Our numbers increased steadily up to fall 2016 when we had an all-time high of 465 participants and 339 applications. There was a slight dip that spring of 17, and unfortunately we had our lowest numbers this past fall. So we believe that those lower numbers were a result of having transfer events offered more frequently, which we'll talk about on the next 2 slides, and that those students are just getting spread out a little bit more among the different events. Also, community college enrollment has been declining in Oregon, so that can play a little bit of a part as well. So at these workshops, we run them from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it's in a visible location. Usually we have tables located by the cafeteria. So the point of that is if a student didn't know about the event, they can still drop by and talk to us because they'll see that we're there. So we have admissions there, we take applications, we defer the application fee automatically. We have academic advisors from most of our schools and colleges. We bring financial aid with us, and we bring housing. So we also offer a presentation, kind of an information session about Portland State and the transfer process. So that's about 45 minutes, and that's for students who want a little bit more of a formal program. So our goals with these workshops are that students will apply earlier. So we entice them with those fee deferrals. We inform them about scholarship and financial aid opportunities. So when we go in the fall, if they're planning to apply for the next year, we can tell them to apply for scholarships. By talking to the academic advisors, they develop those relationships with their advisor earlier on, and they can get assistance in making sure that they're taking correct courses for their major. The last thing that we do is we have a meeting in the morning at most of the schools before the program starts. This has actually been really beneficial. We do a half-hour meeting with the community college advisors. So we show up with our coffee and our donuts, and we give information about PSU programs and updates. Those connections between PSU advisors and community college advisors have been huge. And the community college advisors often get people's business cards. They come around after the meeting and get information from everybody. So it's been a really beneficial part of that workshop.
So, you know, Kelly talks about the transfer workshops where we take, you know, our programming on the road to the community colleges. At the end of the day, though, we want them on campus. So that is, we believe, the best way in which to engage with them and have them see what Portland State is all about. So starting in 2011, we developed transfer open houses. So these were half-day events that we would hold once a term. PSU is on the quarter system, so we're talking about fall, winter, and spring. It would usually be on a Friday afternoon, trying to catch folks when they were not in class. We would have, you know, kind of a full information session. Would be about a half an hour, so really something we would do when students come for a regular campus tour, but more specified, excuse me, to the transfer students. We would also have a resource fair where students could go talk to the different academic departments, depending on who showed up that day, talk to financial aid, housing, departments like that. We would also have 3 breakout sessions that they could attend, 2 of those actually. One would be on, what was I going to say? The admissions requirements specific to PSU. Second would be about degree requirements at the university, which would be done by one of our academic advisors. And the third thing would be a session on financial aid and scholarships, because of course we know students are always trying to figure out, how am I going to pay for school? The numbers were good. You know, but, you know, for the 2016-17 year, we saw 308 students combined for all of the events. Feedback, though, over the years has not always been what we would hope. You know, the schedules were too confined. I couldn't make it on a given day. We would have, you know, sometimes 100, 150 people at each of the events, so students were not getting that one-on-one, you know, conversation time with advisors, admissions counselors that they were hoping for. So this last July in 2017, we did change to a similar transfer open house model, but we're doing these once a month. Now, before I explain kind of what we're doing with this, I also want to talk about an event we used to have for a couple of years called Transfer Tuesday. We would do this once a month, usually over the summer, where students could come on in sometime during a 2-hour period, apply on site, have their application fee deferred, and if they brought their official transcripts from all of their prior institutions, we would make a decision for them on the spot. So how do we merge the old Transfer Open House and Transfer Tuesdays together? This is where the new program came in. So this is offered, like I said, once a month now. We alternate each month, whether it be in the afternoon, usually from about 1:30 to 4:30, or from 5 to 8. Because as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of students that are working during the day, so trying to fit with their hours. we do a brief introduction, about 10 minutes, really just kind of highlighting the key points of why they should attend PSU. We also have a transfer student panel, so we have 3 of our student ambassadors who are all transfer students, kind of talk about their experiences, but then open it up to questions from folks in the audience. They are then able to either, again, apply for admission or just speak with an admissions counselor. They can, be meeting with us for 10 minutes. They can meet with us for a half an hour, depending on what sorts of questions that they have. Of course, in this case, we still also defer their application fee. And then, so while we have one group that's doing that, or meeting with, again, a financial aid counselor one-on-one, somebody from University Housing, the other group will go on a 30-minute transfer-specific campus tour. We do talk about housing, but for a lot of our transfer students in the area, they're going to live at home, so they're not worried so much about the dorms. So again, we talk a lot about the student services that are going to be available to them, some of the key academic departments, things that they are going to be most focused on. Our numbers up through the first 7 transfer open houses, we had about 150 students. Not huge, but again, the big takeaway from this is that we are working with the students more one-on-one. We limit the total size of the group to 60. So again, that is a combination of students as well as guests. Obviously, we want the majority of those folks to attend to be students, but we know the reality of it. We also have tried to not open these up like 5-6 months in advance, because when we started it last summer, we had students that signed up in July to attend in September or October, but they already had their questions answered beforehand, so they didn't need to attend. So they were taking away, in theory, a spot from somebody else who really did need it. So right now we're only opening it up 1 to 2 months in advance, and we are seeing that it is going to be helpful. Again, some of the goals here, that handoff to the academic advising, that is key. Right now, we don't have academic advisors as part of this, but as we move into the next school year, we are hoping to do themed-based transfer open houses. 1 month it could be, we'll have advisors from business and engineering. Another month it could be advisors from our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and College of the Arts. So really trying to make it more schematic to the students so they can talk to the folks that they really need to be connected with. And of course, at the end of the day, it's about increasing applications. That is something that's important to us. It's important to everybody in this room that we do so.
Okay, the last program that I'm going to talk about that we do is transfer consultations. So these are meetings with prospective transfer students at the community colleges. So we do this with 8 local community colleges. Students can schedule an appointment off of our website or through their community college advisor. It's also sometimes posted on the community college website. So students can sign up for a half-hour appointment with us, and we can cover information about the topics you see up here. So those admissions and applying questions, general advising questions as well. And just to give you a little history, we were in the past doing monthly visits to the community colleges, but we would set up a table like close to the cafeteria and just have students stop by and talk to us. We felt that it was hard to market that we were going to be at the schools having a table during lunchtime, and also it was just really quick conversations, and we wanted to give students the opportunity to have more detailed one-on-one appointments. So now we sit in the advising offices and meet with students there. Again, we will make that warm handoff to their academic advisor for their major so that they can get those more specifics answered about their major. So again, that's either making an appointment for them at PSU or giving them direct contact information for an academic advisor. So our goals with this are to be accessible to busy community college students and be present where they are already at, to develop earlier relationships with transfer students and hand them off to their advisor for their major, assist students in taking courses that will transfer to Portland State. So those are our main goals with these consultations. So last thing I'm going to talk about before we have another group discussion is just some lessons that we've learned in our process of planning these events. So first, when I do transfer workshops, I felt when I first started at PSU that it was very beneficial to get input both from the community colleges and from our advisors at PSU in how we ran these workshop programs. Also checking with both community colleges and our advising staff on the dates that we choose for our events. For example, there was a time when we had a workshop at a community college when all of the advisors were at an off-campus meeting. So it meant that we didn't get to have that meeting that day with the community college advisors, and usually they would push students to go to our program, so we didn't have them there that day encouraging students to attend. Also for our advisors at PSU, we plan our events during weeks. So we're on the quarter system, by the way. So we plan our programs during weeks 3 through 6. So they told us avoid the first 2 weeks. Students are changing their classes around, we're busy, and avoid the last weeks of the term. That's when students are registering for classes. We've put a lot of effort into marketing our events, and I think it really pays off. You know, you go to this effort to plan your events, but you need to put in a lot of effort in marketing so that you get a good turnout, and especially for us, it's important that the PSU staff that we bring with us are happy and want to keep coming to our events. So we want them to be able to talk to a lot of students. So for us, marketing, the marketing that we do is we develop a lot of contacts at the community colleges. So we know who the advisors are. We talk to folks in the student centers like Multicultural Center, Queer Resource Center, Women's Resource Center, so we have all of those contacts. TRIO, for example. So that way when we need to advertise the event, we have a group that we can send an email blast out to. We also make flyers, and we deliver those flyers to all of those centers on campus and just deliver it all over the place. We bring sandwich boards with us, and surprisingly, that has been really helpful. We have a lot of students who just drop by because they saw the sandwich board. We put balloons on it, try to make it really visible, and it just says that Portland State is on campus and gives the time and the location. We do have email campaigns that we send out to our student database. Like I said, that's not a huge database that we have, but one thing that's been beneficial is that the community colleges, some of them have been willing to send out an email for us on our behalf. So they will, for students who've identified that they plan to transfer to a university, they will send an email out for us about the event. That has actually been a huge help. We notice when those emails go out that our RSVPs increase by quite a bit. We do social media, so sometimes we do pay a little bit to do Facebook ads. We'll put it on our social media pages. Let's see, what else? There was something else I was going to add. So previously we did not have students sign up for the events, but just so they could drop by, but now we have them sign up ahead of time because that way we can send reminder emails to them about the events. And then lastly, consistency has been huge. So since we've been doing this for the past few years, we find that students now ask their community college advisor, when is PSU coming back? It's usually about the fee deferral, like I want to apply and get my fee deferred. So they'll ask about it. So consistency has been huge. We do have a page on our website where we list all 3 of these transfer events, a little bit of information about them, and it's where students can sign up for the events. So we push students to that page. And we also brought a flyer, a sample flyer. If anyone's interested, you can pick one up afterward. And this just describes our events and directs students to the website. So that's how we advertise our events.
So last fall, we unveiled a program called 4 Years Free for Oregon high school graduates who had a 3.4 GPA, eligible for the Pell Grant, and that we would pay their baseline tuition and fees for all 4 years. Of course, it would be the last dollar kind of a project there. With the transfer students, we are starting it this upcoming fall. So if they come in with at least a 2.5 GPA, again, are Pell eligible, we will still pay that tuition and fees for up to 4 years, so long as they remain Pell eligible during that time. So this is another way in which we're trying to drum up support amongst our in-state students. There's a lot of competition in Portland, so again, this is one way in which we can try to do our best to keep the kids at home. I call them kids, they're not, but you know, I'm old, so I look at them all as being young. Something else that we've done that helped us actually this past fall was a transfer happy hour. Keep in mind, we do not serve alcohol. We have to be cognizant of that. But again, sometimes for transfer students, how they get connected with one another is difficult. So during our welcome week, we had both admission staff as well as academic advisors from a lot of our departments, you know, meet at one of our local breweries and kind of just hang out with the students. We did trivia, you know, we did some raffle prizes, things like that, and we found that to be very successful. And so that is something we are going to be doing going forward, hopefully not just in the fall, but for all of our terms. Now, as Kelly mentioned, we do want to, again, open this back up to discussion. So really we want to hear what sort of strategies, events have you found useful at your institutions to kind of help, you know, bringing in the transfer students and be working with advising and things of that nature. Yeah.
So I know when we were talking about the open house, you said that y'all have advisors from different academic departments coming in on specific.
So that is something, so the question about, you know, whether we have the advisors coming in for the open houses, we are going to be going to that model. Okay. We have not done that so far, but starting next fall, we will be setting it up. And again, I think it's going to help once we have the pathways in order so that we can bring not so much an advisor from biology or history, but from a particular pathway to each of the events.
Okay. And I'm from the University of Mississippi, and we have a very similar setup for our open houses, but we have, we started doing what we call academic grounds fairs during the open houses, so we'll have about a 2-hour period where we'll have representatives that have agreed to come in on Saturday for those 2 hours and have a table set up. It's kind of almost like a college fair, but it simply gives all visiting students an opportunity to browse through the different academic departments and special programs that we offer and meet and talk to those. And it's been very fruitful so far.
And I love hearing that. And I'm hoping it's going better than what we have seen in the past with our transfer open houses because, and I don't think we're alone on this, getting the buy-in from the departments. They're going to say, I don't have time. You want us for so many events. What has Mississippi done to kind of get them to show up?
It's just kind of been the way since we started doing it. They just kind of agreed to have, you know, we only do our transfer open houses once a semester. Okay. And so they've agreed to come in and for those 2 hours. And I guess the week before, if they have a limit on how many hours they can come in, they'll have 2 hours maybe on that Monday where they won't come in and they'll come in that Saturday. Okay. If hours is an issue, that's kind of how we deal with it. But usually, I don't know, we have a really good.
That's good. Great. Cool. Thank you.
I hope it continues to be.
I'm sure.
I'm with the University of Cincinnati. I'm the transition advisor for the 2-year regional campus to the 4-year programs. And we are further out of the campuses, 25 miles away from the main campus. So in the spring, we do a transition fair. We bring liaisons for each one of the programs and 4-year programs and selective admission programs. And what we do is we house them for the whole day. So they do morning transition fair and then they stay afterwards for one-on-one advising sessions with students that have very specific questions as it relates to their next year experience and all that stuff. And we find that very, they get more bang for their buck because they're traveling, you know, they're dedicating whole day, you know, almost half a day just to travel to us. And they're already blocking their calendar, so we feel like we can kind of, you know, up the service by having those one-on-one advising sessions.
At the end of the day, we know advising is the most important thing for these students. So.
I'm from the University of Arkansas, and from listening to everyone in the last couple of days, it seems like we know advising is so key. And at our campus, advisors are also so busy advising current students, so we haven't been able to get them involved in all of our admissions events. So what we have done to combat that is we have what we call a community college connections event, and I think some people have started doing this where once a year we host, and we're in Fayetteville, Arkansas, we're just home to Walmart. The reason why I say that is because they built that Crystal Bridges, which is a world-class museum. They have events. There's a really neat culture going on in Northwest Arkansas. So for the rest of the state, we have 22 community colleges, the Delta regions. So we invite them, pay for everything, and host them for 2 days, and take them to all these neat events. But they're on campus, they meet with the advisors make those connections. So what we're trying to do is build the relationships with the academic advisors at the community colleges. They love it because they get a full pay, but it's kind of a personal development as well, that they learn. We bring the advisors to campus, we still do it for students. We found that's been very successful because now they feel comfortable reaching directly out to the advisors if they're working with a student down, 5 or 6 hours away from Fayetteville because we're in the very corner of the state. So that's been helpful, and I don't know if anyone else has ever done anything like that, but sometimes reaching the support system in the community college is just as fruitful as the students.
Yeah, we've done that with high school counselors, but not with the community college counselors. So I think it's a smart idea. Yeah.
One of the things, I'm in close to Cincinnati. I'm at Morehead State in Eastern Kentucky. One of the things that we have in our state that I guess I've taken for granted until I got here is we have a statewide agreement. We have in Kentucky, obviously, we have the Kentucky Community Technical College system. So it is a system, 16 community colleges. But we have an agreement with them, all of the publics, that they provide us twice a year with a list of all students in their system who have, one, completed 40 or more college credit hours, and then a second list of those who completed a credential, a diploma, or a certificate the previous semester. So in talking about like building your prospect pool, that has been invaluable. And I realize that not every state has a system, but I think that any schools that you may have an articulation agreement with, maybe some work can be done to have access to that, because twice a year I can log in and boom, there's 85,000 prospects. And so I can obviously filter it, sort it by schools, so we can tell them when I'm coming, we can sort it by program. We can sort it by GPA, so I can do an email campaign to all those folks and say, hey, we're looking for a scholarship or whatever. That's been fantastic. The other thing that we do, does anybody else do college pitch? Yes. It's kind of, I don't know how you guys feel about it, it's kind of citizen and it's okay. We just recently, over the past year, went ahead and splurged into the unlimited subscription. And that's been fairly helpful, not nearly as helpful as the KCTCS list that we're getting from the community college system. I've actually found it more useful with regard to scholarship prospects and actually military affiliated prospects. Nonetheless, it has been helpful. I think we continue to pay for it. But yeah, the lists from the community college system are fantastic. We have Illusion on our campus, and so we use Recruit, and it's fine, but obviously that's an opt-in, and so with the list that we get, we just get it. It's great.
That's amazing.
So you want to move to the, so we're gonna. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, that's perfect right here. Yeah.
I'm thinking more about. I work at a small liberal arts college in Boston. We're 1,800 students, 80% transfer. So looking at that, getting the buy-in for that small student population is sometimes difficult, but we can work with advisors, so and so. My question is, we talked a good bit about what you can do in your office to advise students in transfer credit evaluation. When did that happen? What kind of training do you have? Because that's what I'm thinking of. admission counselors, can we just, if we can't get advisor buy-in, what can I learn? How do you get them to teach you things? That's what I'm looking for.
So again, the question, just simply for our camera back there, is, you know, again, for the admissions staff, what sort of training do we have to do the advising? A lot of it is self-taught. It's going through, we have degree maps for all of our programs, so kind of like seeing what they need to take there, using transferology the best we can, but also working with the academic advisors that we have good relationships with, so just kind of better understanding what are you talking with a prospective student about, you know, class they need to take, so we can glean from that. You know, I think all of our admissions counselors do a good job of working with transfer students. I think, I always have to watch how I say this here. Some are probably a little bit more comfortable doing it than others, just because for a lot of our counselors, most of their time is spent working with first-year students. So we have one counselor who primarily does freshman recruitment in the Portland metro area. She also covers Texas, so she is working with transfer students there, but again, that is such a small part of her job, so it is something where maybe just asking for colleagues' assistance, you know, before providing answers.
I would say maybe doing like a little training or something too. We did, this was like a while ago, but had an advisor from Advising and Career Services just come to one of our meetings and just talk about like general advising questions and how to answer them.
Yeah.
I'll add to that and try to answer your question a little bit how we do things. So we have 4 people in the admissions office dedicated to transfer students. We're a pretty large transfer population. All of us can advise students until they're fully admitted and then ready to see their advisors. We know the ins and outs of all the degrees. We do a lot of training in the bulletin, because that's the legal document when students come in. So we do a lot of that. Now there's students who slip through the cracks. They're going to see an advisor before they see us, which is fine. And there's times where we can't answer the question. We have to go to the advisor, but that takes a lot of stress off of the advising offices. Although they are very receptive to working with prospective students, but we know we basically knew everything the advisor knew, with the exception of enrolling them in classes. We just know the ins and outs of it all.
Sweet.
Great.
So with that, again, we have our contact information up here. Both Kelly and I do also have business cards, so if you have questions for us after today, we'd be happy to help you out. And of course, you know, we have to put this up because we're told to do so. So, you know, your aha moment, something like that. So thank you all very much for joining us here. We'd be happy to meet with you individually if you have questions as well, but enjoy the rest of your day.